Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Madupa. I'm your corporate professional. I work as a finance analyst, and prior to that I was working as an economic analyst. Now, in today's video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of working for a small company versus like a large corporation. I feel like I can add some good advice to this discussion because prior to my current role, when I was working as an economic analyst, I was working for a large corporation. And when I mean a large corporation, I'm talking about companies whereby probably they're international. They have over 10,000 employees placed around the world. They make millions and millions in revenue, and they have various departments all over the world. So that's what I consider like a really large corporation. And when I say a small corporation, I'm thinking a company that probably only has one office. They have up to like maybe 500 employees max, and all their teams are based basically in the same office. So that's why I consider a small corporation. And they make anything up to maybe 1 million, 2 million, 5 million probably in revenue. I also want to put startup companies in that umbrella because I feel like they also have something to offer that's similar to small companies. Because you have some small companies who have been on the market for many years, but they still remain a small company. And then you have small companies who have been on the market for just a few years, 3, 4, 5 years or a bit more. So yeah, so when I say small company, I mean small companies / new startups. Now my first pro would be to working for a small company is that you get to build processes from scratch. And let me give you an example. So the current company I work for now, they're a small company. They have roughly maybe 250 employees. I came into the treasury team about 2-3 years ago. They didn't actually have a proper treasury team. They first employed a director. They employed a director about 2 years ago, and now they've employed a treasury analyst / funding analyst, which is me. And yeah, they've welcomed me into the team. And my first task was to actually build an operating manual for managing a forward flow transaction that the company had with another financial institution. So I was actually building that from scratch, making sure that notices were sent out on time, and building a model whereby we can keep track of that actual transaction. A lot of small companies, you're able to get involved in things like that, building things from scratch, which can be very fulfilling. You learn a lot, of course. It makes you understand the team you work for better because you're actually building the process. So you're not coming in there whereby you didn't know anything and they're just giving you one unique task to do. You get a better picture of what is actually going on. Whereas with larger corporations, what I find is that the processes are there already, and you maybe just do a small portion of that, or you use that process and to achieve something. So you haven't actually been involved in building it. So you can create some gaps in knowledge as well. So yeah, that would be my first pro. Again, similar to what I said before, my second point is that you learn a lot. And why I'm specifying this is because learning a lot, this will provide you the skills to get a really high paying role. Because you've been exposed to so many things, you can then put all of these things on your CV and then demand a higher salary for your next job. My third point would be, or my third pro would be, that you learn you have a better understanding of how the business operates. So where I work, literally on my table, you have the CFO, you have the COO, you have the CEO that's not too far. I hear the discussions that they have. I can get a sense of whether the company is doing well, whether if there's a transaction happening. Like, I get to understand that. I understand the atmosphere. Like, there's a lot of things that they talk about that obviously I don't understand everything, but as you go into work every day, always hearing that, you're going to pick up things, you're going to understand things better. Whereas when you're working for a large corporation, the CEO is not someone that you can you have access to, or the CFO is not someone you have access to. They're all like somewhere else. When you work for a small company, you understand the business. If you want to speak to the product team, they're right there. If you want to speak to the capital markets team, they're right there, or finance team. You have that. It's easier for you to even see what you feel like you enjoy more, because you can actually see what the team is doing. So for example, I work within treasury, but I can actively see what the underwriters are doing. So I can think, oh, so if I wanted to be an underwriter, this is what I would need to do. Or if I wanted to be an accountant, this is what I would need to do. And I can get an understanding of whether that's the type of role I want or not. So that's what's really good about working for a small company. Whereas in a large corporation, I'm not saying, sometimes obviously you can see what other teams are doing, but not all the time. I feel like in large corporations, maybe sometimes the team might not integrate as much, but this is just from my experience. There will be instances where you work for a large corporation and, you know, the teams do integrate. So yeah, but in general, this is just what I've experienced. In a small company, there's an opportunity to move up the ladder quicker and actually train other staff. I feel like with large corporations, when it comes to like promoting people, they have like a general consensus and they have like rules they will follow. So I remember in my previous company, if I could remember correctly, you couldn't be a senior analyst after like maybe 2 or 3 years. It's more structured, the way they promote people. Whereas with a small company, if you're really doing well, if you're really adding value, they can see it and they can promote you immediately. With small companies or startups, they're really growing fast. And so once they see that you're really getting the hang of things and they want to hire someone else, they can then promote you, because then you have to train that person that they've just hired onto the team. Like I mentioned before, you get exposure to top directors. What's really great about being in contact with these people is because you can kind of see, what does it take to become a CEO? What does it take to become a CFO, a COO? How does this business function? If I was going to start this business myself, I'm not saying that I would do, but if I was to start this type of business myself, okay, these are the things I'll need. So you get a better understanding. Whereas when you're in a large corporation, it's kind of hard to understand what the business does as a whole, or how to start up a type of business like that. Whereas with a small company, because you have so much exposure to the directors, you can kind of see, okay, so this is how they do this. Okay, so if I was going to do something like this, I'll need this. And another thing with a small company is more personal. They can actually see your added value much easier, because it's a small company, you're working for a small team, so they can actually see what value you're adding. This could be a pro or con depending on your personality, but I personally see it as a pro, because then if I'm adding value, then you know it means you're getting promoted quicker. Let's move on to the cons. Now, I believe my first con is that it could be high pressured. There may be a lot of workload. This is not from my personal experience, but it's from talking to a friend. I know she was working as an accountant and she did find it very stressful. You know, there was a lot of work for her to do, because you're working for a small team. When things get busy, that means there are a few people to you know, take on that workload. Again, this could be seen as a positive at the same time, because you're learning a lot, but then also as a negative, because obviously you don't want to burn out yourself. Me personally, in my current role, I feel like there's a good balance. I feel like definitely I'm more busier in my current role than in my previous role. In a small company, things can be more political, because it's small, and you know, people can talk more easily. Things go around. I feel like it can get political. I have a video on my channel where I talk about workplace dilemmas, so definitely watch that if you want to find out more. So sometimes in small companies, there might not be a clear structure, because it's a small company, or maybe it's a startup. There might not be that structure because the company is still growing. But there are small companies that have been established for many years, and so they have a good structure in place, and they've probably taken on a few graduates. So so yeah, it could be either or. But with larger corporations, there's definitely a structure. They have experience taking on many graduates. So yeah, I mean, if you're someone that really likes structure, and you know, you want to be in a certain place, or you want to grow our company, you know, a large corporation could be for you. But then again, you can still grow at a small company. So it just depends on your preference. Another thing is with larger firms, so because they're known in the industry and there are many more corporations like that firm, it can make it easier to transfer your skills. For example, if you're working for, I don't know, one of the big banks like NatWest, and you're analyst at NatWest working in the investment banking division, it's not going to be so different to the investment banking division in Barclays. So you can clearly just transfer those skills more easily. Whereas I feel like with a small company, because it's small and their culture is different and they have different ways of doing things and they're not as established, so and their processes are probably not as established, so it's very, very different amongst all the other small firms. It might make it a tiny bit harder to transfer those skills. But again, nonetheless, the skills you're learning are still extremely valuable and still transferable. But it's just that when you work for large corporations, you like 100% have those things that that are very comparable to another large firm within that same industry. So my final thoughts, my comments: should you work for a small company? Should you work for a large company? Honestly, in my opinion, you should work for both. You should definitely have the experience of working for a small company. There are things you will learn that you wouldn't have if you didn't work for a small company. Again, similarly, it's good to work for a large corporation. You should understand how a large corporation functions. Every company, regardless of size, will bring you different experience. So it's not so much worrying about the size of the company, but also just focusing on what can you learn. So when I'm applying for roles, I really, really focus on the job description. What am I learning? What can I take away? Okay, so if I do this job, what kind of roles can I apply for after staying in that role for 2 years or for 1 year? For 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what kind of role can I apply to next? So that's the way you need to be thinking. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.